You're listening to Trax FM's podcast. If you've enjoyed our content, more podcasts are available on the RTM Click app and website. Let us know what you think. Please email us at traxfm.rtm@gmail.com. Like and follow us on social media at Trax FM Official.
Welcome to Face to Face on a beautiful looking Thursday. Our guest today is His Excellency Dave Malcomson, the South Africa High Commissioner to Malaysia, and the topic we are going to be talking about today, the South Africa-Malaysia 30 years of bilateral ties. Welcome to the studio, Your Excellency, and how are you today?
Very well, thank you, KG, and thank you very much for the opportunity provided by Trax FM to meet with you today, with you and your listeners. Thank you.
Absolutely wonderful. Now we shall get straight to the questions for today. South Africa and Malaysia have celebrated 30 years of diplomatic relations this year. Please give us a sense of where this relationship has come from over the years and the future of bilateral relations between us.
Thank you. Yes, obviously it's the 30 years, as you've said, of our formal diplomatic relations, but our ties go back much further than that, to the times of the Dutch in the 16th and 17th and 18th centuries, when people from the Malay archipelago were brought to the Cape Colony at that time. And as a result of that, today in the Cape area, we have a community called the Cape Malay community. So those historical, linguistic, cultural, cuisine ties go back a very long way. Islam came to South Africa through those linkages. We have linkages in our language. Words like blatjan, pisang are spoken in South Africa.
Wow.
And we have Cape Malay cuisine that reflects very much the Malay heritage. Following on from that, of course, in the anti-apartheid struggle times, Malaysia was one of the solidarity partners that was very strong in fighting against apartheid. And as one example, Malaysia was instrumental in removing South Africa from the Commonwealth going into the 1960s. That continued up to our liberation in 1994. Of course, at that time, the Malaysian Prime Minister was Tun Dr. Mahathir, who had a very close relationship with President Mandela and then with President Mbeki. So the relationship between Malaysia and South Africa from 94 to about 2005 was extremely strong and vibrant. And at some point, Malaysia was one of the top investors in South Africa. Unfortunately, over the years since, for various reasons, we haven't been able to grow past that high point. So my coming to Malaysia was to say we need to reinvigorate and revive the relationship. And we've agreed with Malaysia in the Foreign Office consultations earlier in the year that we both committed to reviving the relationship, to getting that strategic focus back on each other. And from the side of President Ramaphosa and Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim, there's a commitment that we need to be working on this relationship. And I think we're beginning to see the results of that. Trade last year doubled between Malaysia and South Africa. And our exports to Malaysia doubled. So that's a reflection of the fact that we are getting somewhere in terms of making sure that we go forward into the future with a very strong relationship.
Absolutely amazing. And many, many years of relations between us. And actually, Cape Malay, that was something that I recently found out because I was watching a cooking channel and they showed the amazing cuisines that was available there. And so I did my research and I was like, wow, we are all over the place.
Exactly.
It's amazing. And you spoke about trade increasing by double. And so let's continue on that flow. In terms of trade and investment, what opportunities should Malaysia and Malaysian businesses look out for, especially in South Africa?
Sure. The biggest opportunity is in the halal sector. What many people don't know, even though South Africa has a relatively small Muslim population, we're in the top 5 to 7 global producers of halal products. And 60% of all the products in our retail stores are halal certified. And 3 of our halal certification bodies are recognized by JAKIM in Malaysia. So the gap between demand and supply currently worldwide, there's about a 40% gap. And we believe that Malaysia and South Africa working together can meet the demands of that gap between supply and demand. It's not just South African products coming into Malaysia. There's also the opportunities of getting into the African market. Africa, currently about 1.2 billion people, is united under the African Continental Free Trade Area. And within that, there's about 500 million plus Muslims in Africa. So we believe that Malaysian companies working with South African companies can have South Africa as a halal hub and invest in halal parks in South Africa, where we can then access the African market. We also have the infrastructure linkages, the retail linkages, the banking linkages throughout the continent that will enable that. So that for me is the biggest opportunity. For Malaysia to treat us as the gateway to Africa, just as we treat Malaysia as the gateway to ASEAN. Of course, there's other opportunities. I think currently we have about a 20% market share of your fruit imports. We're the second biggest exporter of citrus products in the world after Spain. The one area where I think there's work that still needs to be done is in the meat industry. We have the meat at the same quality or higher quality but lower prices than some of your current suppliers. And I think what COVID taught us is that you need diversified food supply chains. And South Africa provides that opportunity in beef, lamb, mutton, to give the Malaysian consumer a choice in terms of a cheaper but high-quality product. Of course, there's other areas. For example, these days, there's a great difficulty in accessing containers. Shipping is very expensive. So we're saying to Malaysian industrialists, come and invest in industrial parks in South Africa. From South Africa, then you can access directly the African market without having to worry about where to get containers, the price of the container. You can do it directly from South Africa into the African market in areas where Malaysia has a competitive advantage, such as semiconductors and so on. So there are all these opportunities that exist between us that I think we can leverage going forward.
Absolutely. And South Africa is beautifully geographically, it is situated where the entire African continent is just open to the entire market, especially for Malaysia in terms of trade. So that is absolutely wonderful.
And even the Middle East, we send a lot of our products into the Middle East from South Africa. Yeah.
Absolutely. Your Excellency, we're going to be taking a very short break, and once we come back, there is more to talk about the South Africa-Malaysia 30 years of bilateral ties. We are currently talking to His Excellency Dave Malcomson. We will be right back. Welcome back. Here we are speaking to His Excellency Dave Malcomson, the South Africa High Commissioner to Malaysia. We are speaking about South Africa and Malaysia, 30 years of bilateral ties. And Your Excellency, you said you have something to say about the song.
Yes, certainly. The song reminds me of the time back in 2010 when South Africa hosted the Soccer World Cup. So it brings back very good memories, and I cannot let it go but to say that we are in the World Cup final of the Rugby World Cup in Paris.
Yes.
On Saturday against the All Blacks. And much as many Malaysians support the All Blacks, I hope that after Saturday they'll move to supporting South Africa rather.
Both very, very strong teams. So it should be a very interesting matchup this coming Saturday. And Your Excellency, now moving back to the questions, over the last few years, the geopolitical landscape has shifted tremendously. Now, could you give us a South African perspective on this, particularly in light of the BRICS summit that was recently hosted in South Africa?
Certainly. I think you're spot on. Over the years, the geopolitical landscape has shifted. And if we look today compared to when many of the global institutions were created after the Second World War, the way they're structured now do not reflect the realities of the world today. And therefore, as South Africa, we've always said we need to reform the global institutions to make them more inclusive, representative, equitable. And that's why a formation like BRICS is very important to us, because BRICS is committed to making sure that the voice of the South, of the developing world, the common concerns and needs of the South are taken forward in the global institutions to make sure that we have options when it comes to how the world is governed, how the world deals with the common global challenges, things like climate change. And the pandemic has shown us that you need to work together as a world to deal with these common global challenges that cannot be dealt with by single individual countries. So that's why at the United Nations, within formations like the Non-Aligned Movement, the G77 and BRICS in particular, we've taken forward this message that we need to change things. We need to do things differently. And I think the excitement about the most recent BRICS summit and the fact that so many countries were wanting to join the BRICS formation shows that there's a real appetite in the South for a voice that can represent our needs. Following the BRICS summit where we added new members, BRICS as a formation has now taken over from the G7. We now have 37% of world GDP represented by the BRICS countries. We have 21% share of world trade, and almost 50% of the world's population can be found in the BRICS countries. So this makes it a powerful formation that can take forward these messages of what we need to do to make the United Nations more effective, to make the World Bank more effective and representative, the IMF and so on and so forth, World Health Organization, World Trade Organization. And I think within that, Malaysia is a strong partner of South Africa because you've always been at the forefront of South-South cooperation and of representing the voice of the South. So I think that's why we regard Malaysia as a strategic partner in this effort to make sure that the current world order, when it comes to how we deal with things and how we are represented in global institutions, is actually the way it should be.
So BRICS would provide the voice for the representation of the growing countries, that is South Africa, Malaysia and the such.
Absolutely. And one thing that we need to emphasize, because there's a certain narrative that tries to say that BRICS is against something.
Yes.
We're against the West or we're against the EU and the US. That is absolutely not true. BRICS was created for our own needs. It wasn't created to be counter to anything. Equally, the de-dollarization debate that emerged ahead of the summit. BRICS never said anything about de-dollarization. It's a narrative that came from elsewhere. What we were saying is that we need to use national currencies in paying for our trade, in paying for investment, in infrastructure projects, and so on and so forth. And I see even Prime Minister Anwar has been talking about Malaysia within the context of ASEAN relations and so on, turning towards national currencies. So you're not dependent on the currency fluctuations when it comes to using the dollar and so on.
So there is a lot of effort being put forward by BRICS in terms of growth as well as representation, and I believe that is quite important, especially for countries that are still growing, and of course not a narrative against the West.
Absolutely not against anybody, yeah.
And what should our two countries, Your Excellency, should be doing going forward in terms of South Africa and multilateral cooperation, South-South and multilateral cooperations?
Well, I think, as I've said, Malaysia, particularly during the time of Tun Dr. Mahathir, was very much at the forefront of leadership of the South in terms of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, in terms of the non-aligned movement, and there's other organizations like the Indian Ocean Rim Association, the Commonwealth, the G77, where we can work together to make sure that those organizations really do come up with solutions and provide ways forward that will genuinely meet the needs of our people and will ensure that we address the triple challenges of poverty, inequality, unemployment as we proceed forward. And again, just on the concept of non-alignment, I think it's about providing us with that space to make our choices as free nations, where we're not forced into binary choices of saying you're either with us or you're against us. Where as members of the non-aligned movement, we have the freedom to say, we think ABC is the correct way to do something and not have to listen to outside voices telling us you must follow path A or path B.
Absolutely understood. And Your Excellency, we'll be taking another short break and we will be right back. We are currently speaking to the South Africa High Commissioner to Malaysia, His Excellency Dave Malcomson, and we are speaking about South Africa, Malaysia, 30 years of bilateral ties. We will be right back. Welcome back to Face to Face, and we are speaking with His Excellency Dave Malcomson, the South Africa's High Commissioner to Malaysia. Our topic today has been South Africa and Malaysia, 30 years of bilateral ties. And now moving on to a part of the questions where I think everybody will enjoy, of course, tourism. What are some of the efforts being made to explore South Africa as an attractive tourism destination in Malaysia's travel plans?
First of all, just again to comment, that song was also from 2010 World Cup, so
yes.
I'm very glad that you are playing our songs. Thank you.
On
the tourism side, obviously we had two problems to deal with. The first was COVID. That COVID really disrupted tourism between our countries. Also, there used to be a direct link between Malaysia and South Africa through Malaysian Airlines. And that used to fly from Kuala Lumpur to Johannesburg or to Cape Town and then on to Buenos Aires. So I did go and meet the CEO of Malaysian Air last year to say, can we put in place the link again? But this time from South Africa to link on to Brazil, because currently there's no link from Southern Africa to South America. He said that they had done the modeling. Currently it wouldn't be economical, but perhaps with some work with partners, we could build up enough traffic that by 2025 they could look at that link again. Because, of course, direct linkages make it more attractive. Having said that, we've been working with as many of the tour operators in Malaysia as we can, providing them with monthly newsletters about the new opportunities, the unique offerings, that South Africa has in the tourism space. We've also been facilitating some of the tour operators that take group tours. We're particularly strong in the MICE industry and trying to get Malaysian businesses and so on looking at South Africa in terms of their investment, their incentive programs and so on. Of course, there's the halal link again, where we have a strong halal tourism sector, and particularly the Cape Malay community. There's an area of Cape Town called Boerkaap, which any Malaysian, I think, would be very excited to go and visit. It's a very colourful and vibrant neighbourhood, both aesthetically but also in terms of the culture and the food and so on. But of course, South Africa in general, we used to have a slogan saying a world in one country, where we can provide a safari experience, a seaside experience. We even have snow skiing in some of the mountains. We have the mountain adventures. So it's a very unique offering where you can literally find any type of a tourism experience, be it ecotourism, be it adventure tourism, in the one space that is South Africa. And then, of course, our neighbours also provide some exciting opportunities like Victoria Falls. And often these global tour magazines, Condé Nast and so on, Cape Town, for one, comes up as one of the top destinations in the world. There's various operators in terms of hotels, safaris, that come out as top operators in the world. So I don't think any Malaysian will find South Africa a letdown. They hopefully will find it as something exceeding whatever expectations they may have had.
As we were talking off air earlier, our palates are similar, so food wouldn't be a problem.
Not at all.
The halal industry would cater for our, our needs as well over there.
Absolutely.
Wow. So tourism, that would be interesting. I think I will need to put South Africa on my tourism plans for the next couple of years.
We would love to host you in South Africa. You're welcome.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. And 2023 marks 30 years of relations between Malaysia and South Africa. How are you planning to celebrate this milestone?
Well, throughout the course of the year, starting in March, we've been doing a series of interviews like this one. We've also engaged with most of the universities. I've given speeches at all the major universities. On the 8th of November itself, which is the actual day in 1993 when we signed the diplomatic relations, we'll be hosting an event to celebrate that, where we'll be inviting the key figures from Malaysian government, from business, from the social side of things, as well as the diplomatic community, to come and celebrate with us at Restaurant Rebang. Chef Ismail, I believe, is a well-known celebrity chef in Malaysia. He's also the Malaysian Tourism Gastro Diplomacy Ambassador. So he's agreed to host us at his restaurant, where he will be exploring the linkages between Malay cuisine and Cape Malay cuisine, to try and give our audience a taste of that direct linkage that we have. Also, we will hopefully be with him and a celebrity chef from South Africa doing a program for TV for the Malaysian market and the South African market, where the two chefs will be cooking some South African Cape Malay recipes, again to showcase the fact that there is this Cape Malay linkage. We have invited Her Majesty the Queen to be the VIP supporter of the program, as she, as many Malaysians would know, is very strong on the Malay cooking. She has her own cookbooks, and I believe she's very interested in the Cape Malay cooking. So hopefully she'll be gracious enough to agree to be part of that event. So in a nutshell, those are the ways we've been celebrating.
We wish you all the best in celebrating this milestone, and I love it that you're putting food at the forefront.
Well, Malaysia, it's all about food.
Absolutely.
The first thing that anyone told me when I came to Malaysia was, you need to know makan.
Makan. Yes, absolutely. And Your Excellency, what would be the best source to know more about South Africa?
Well, I think these days people use various sources. Of course, there's the traditional sources of Googling information about South Africa. There's the traditional government sources where you can go and on internet to find out information about South Africa. But in this new day and age, there's plenty of content on TikTok, on Instagram.
Yes.
There's plenty of sights and sounds and experiences in South Africa that are very Instagrammable.
It's absolutely true.
So I think anybody wanting to know about South Africa, there's a plethora of places, both traditional and non-traditional or new, modern, where you can find information about South Africa and the exciting things that you can do and see in the country.
Yes, all you need to do is just go and find it. It's all available to be
Absolutely.
seen. And anything else that you would like to add before we end for today, Your Excellency?
Well, again, thank you very much. I think as Malaysians and South Africans, we share common historical experience. We're very similar in terms of the countries being multicultural. We have multi-religious, multi-language. And because of those things that are similar between us, there's an understanding and a solidarity that we share that I think we've lost over the years. And we need to go back to that. We need to know more about each other. We need to be able to work together on issues that we share a passion for. The Palestinian issue. South Africa and Malaysia are very much in the same space of defending the rights of the Palestinian people. And that's across the board. You look at any of the issues. Malaysia and South Africa are very close together. But in general, as you've said, the people, if we talk about people-to-people cooperation, we're not strangers. Any Malaysian coming to South Africa will feel an affinity for the food, the culture. They will pick up words in the language, the religious elements, so on and so forth. So I think all that we need going forward, as my final message, is let's get that strategic focus back on each other. And I think in Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim, we have a partner who's committed to re-engaging Malaysia in South-South cooperation.
All right. Thank you so much, Your Excellency. An absolute pleasure speaking to you today. And there's a lot of things about South Africa that I think I would need to explore after this, especially the sites like when you mentioned Victoria Falls. I think it is the tallest waterfall on the planet, isn't it?
I think there's one in South America that's taller.
Angel Falls.
Angel Falls, yes.
Yes.
But Vic Falls is one of the most spectacular.
The most spectacular, yes, absolutely. I think those would be the sites that all Malaysians need to see at least once in their lifetime. And with that, a big thank you to you and, of course, your government as well. And we wish to host you again in the future.
Thank you, KG, and thank you, Trax FM.
All right. And ladies and gentlemen, that was His Excellency Dave Malcomson, South Africa's High Commissioner to Malaysia. South Africa-Malaysia, 30 years of bilateral ties. Right here on Face to Face. We will be right back after this.
You're listening to Trax FM's podcast. If you've enjoyed our content, more podcasts are available on the RTM Click app and website. Let us know what you think. Please email us at traxfm.rtm@gmail.com. Like and follow us on social media at Trax FM Official.